Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar.
Laws. All members must properly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school. Islam wars, and the teacher must confirm himself to the questionnaire. So at this time, we'll confirm ourselves to the questionnaire. The great meeting is on. Islam. I was reading Quran. Asia. Quran questions for Moorish Americans. We have the Prophet Noble Drew Ali on the front of our Quran questions. Islam wars. And the Prophet is upholding or holding up a sister. Islam. And what is he doing? He's bringing her out of what?
Cares of the world.
Out of the cares of the world, because inside of that water is written the cares of the world. And why is he bringing her out of the cares of the world? Somebody answer that for me. Why is he bringing the sister out of the cares of the world?
Standing on the rock of salvation.
He's bringing her onto the rock of salvation. Why? Islam.
Because excuse me.
Islam.
Because the sister woman is the one that brings forth, that builds the nation.
Islam. Because the woman gives birth to a nation. Islam. And we know that the woman is the first teacher. Right? So the Prophet is bringing her out of the cares of the world. We know that the cares of the world represents all of the confusion and chaos that happens in our society, right? So we have to get our woman right and straight so that our next generations can be raised properly. Islam wars? In our Quran it says, dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones that they will learn to love instead of hate. And that is the very foundation of our doctrine, of the doctrine of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam wars? To teach our people how to learn to love again. And it says to teach them how to learn to love, right? We are learning to love because we haven't been taught properly how to do so. Islam, watch the camera, sister. So we haven't been taught how to properly love. So we had to have an example of love come to us to show us the way. Islam? Just as Jesus was sent to the Israelites of his time, he was love made manifest as well. Islam wars? So was our Prophet Noble Drew Ali in these days and times, being love made manifest to give us an example of what it means to love, or what it looks like to love, or what love looks like. Islam wars? We have been taught for a very long time to hate ourselves, to look in the mirror and hate the image that we see, because we were given an image from another group of people and told and taught how to worship it as the God, as our God. So our Prophet, being divinely prepared and sent by Allah, the great God of the universe, looked like us so that we can learn how to love the image that we see when we look in the mirror. Islam? But our Prophet said not to pray, to worship him, right? Worship thy Father God Allah. But he is the example of Allah here on earth. Islam wars? Praise Allah. So at this time I'll continue to read. So we have salvation written at the bottom, and you see that the Prophet is stepping out of the water and got 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on land. Islam. So he's bringing the sister out of the cares of the world and bringing her onto the shores of salvation. Islam? So praise Allah for the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, for sending us the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Islam? So we go to flip over to page 1. We'll confirm ourselves to the questionnaire. And the way this works, for those who don't know, I'll read the question, and you all will respond with the answer. Islam wars? So if there's any questions that you may have as we're going through this questionnaire, please raise your hand, because this is not a preaching session. It's not a thing where I say things and you just take it and believe it. Islam? This is why I say we have to confirm ourselves to the questionnaire. Islam wars? And if I can't answer the question, then we have several masters in the room who can assist me, because I want to at some point be quiet. So Islam wars? Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Ameen. Ameen. Quran questions for Moorish children. Remember, I'll ask the question, you all will respond with the answer. Key 1, who made you?
Allah.
Key 2, who is Allah?
Allah is the Father of the universe.
Key 3, can we see him?
No.
Key 4, where is the nearest place we can meet him?
In the heart.
Key 5, who is Noble Drew Ali?
He is Allah's prophet.
Key 6, what is a prophet?
A prophet is the thought of Allah manifested in flesh.
Key 7, what is the duty of a prophet?
To save nations from the wrath of Allah.
Key 8, who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America?
Noble Drew Ali.
Key 9, what year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
1913 AD.
Key 10, where?
Newark, New Jersey.
Key 11, where was Noble Drew Ali born?
In the state of North Carolina, 1886.
Key 12, what is his nationality?
Moorish American.
Key 13, what is your nationality?
Moorish American.
Key 14, why are we Moorish Americans?
Because we are descendants of Moroccans born in America.
Islam. Now, I want to point out that as we look at keys 1 through 14, we're seeing sort of a structure being laid, right? You know, how oftentimes you see those pictures that floats around online that talks about sort of like, you know, the hierarchy in life, right? You have Allah, and most of the time you have Jesus, or it said Christ. Then you have family and children, etc., right? So here it reintroduces us to our great God, right? Allah, right? And then it goes on to explain to us the nearest place to meet Allah, right? It says that we can't see him, but the nearest place to meet him is where?
In the heart.
In the heart. So we're being reintroduced to an idea that you don't have to wait to meet your great God, because the nearest place that he exists is within you. You don't have to continue to look up in the sky and hope for something to descend down to save you from your conditions, right? The nearest place to meet Allah is in the heart, so that means that if you want to solve any issues or if you're looking for the solution, you can look within yourself. Islam? If you are a child of God or a child of the great God, who is the creator, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible, then aren't you what your father is?
Father, that was a contradiction.
Islam, right? So you are a creator as well. So heaven and hell and earth is not above, below, around, but where?
In.
But in. It is a what? It is a state of mind. Heaven and hell is a state of mind. It's not a place that you travel to after you leave this form. It may be after we don't know anybody who went there and came back and told us about it. But we know from experience that we can have a heaven and a hell right here on earth, right here in our physical lives. It's a state of mind. So if I'm depressed and sad and, you know, struggling with anxiety and all of these things, that is a state of hell. But guess what? There's a solution to it. Islam. And if you want to experience that heaven, you want to experience this a state of harmony and balance and peace. You simply go within yourself and you change the way that you think, right? Change the way that you perceive your condition. Because we're going to go through some things here on this plane of manifest. That's why we're here, to go through some things, right? So that we can learn how to perfect ourselves. We're going to go through some things. That's why we're here. But the way you perceive those challenges can determine whether you are in hell or in heaven. Islam Moorish says, without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. And thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. So this foe that we're going to continuously fight can be met as close as to you than within yourself. Right? You know, the only devil that man should be redeemed from is self. His what? Lower self. So man has two selves then. The higher self and the lower self. And we'll get into that later on in the questionnaire. Islam Moorish? Islam. Then it goes down, in, you know, within that structure, it talks about the prophet, right? So we have Allah, then we have the prophet. And the prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. And his job is to save nations from the wrath of Allah. Islam Moorish? Islam Sheik.
Islam. I rise with praise to Allah, your mind, your honesty to Islam.
Islam.
They say we're the nearest place we can meet Allah is in the heart.
Islam.
My question is what heart?
Ooh, Islam. So what heart? I'm gonna ask the floor. I'm gonna put this back on. Anybody got an answer for that? Islam Sheik.
Islam, man. We're not talking about this physical heart.
Islam.
We're talking about the center, the essence
Islam.
of man.
That's right.
Then you'll meet Allah.
Islam. Islam. Anybody else? You know, sometimes we have different explanations, and it doesn't mean that one person is right or the other person is wrong. So we're talking about our particular, that we know that there's only one understanding. So I'm not going to say that we all have, we have a portion that we can explain. And our portion doesn't mean that it's our opinion, right? It just means that that's the portion or the viewpoint that Allah has appointed to you. Islam, Moors? So Islam, Sheik. Islam.
It's the same heart that, you know, is referenced in chapter 15.
Islam.
When Jesus, you know, went to the wilderness, you know, to look into his inner heart, to know the strength of working.
Islam. Islam. So as both of these masters said, you know, it's not referring to the physical heart, although there can be a physical explanation. Right? Because we know that the heart does what?
Pump blood.
Pump blood, which is a source of what?
Life.
It's a source of life that keeps you alive and moving, right? But there's a more inner, sometimes we like to say esoteric, right? Explanation, right? Because we know that, I got you, man is not the body nor the soul, but a spirit and part of Allah, right? So if man is not the body nor the soul, then we know that this man is not talking about the physical heart, right? Or it can be, but spiritually, right? Man is not the body nor the soul, but a spirit and a part of Allah. So we're talking about the very core of who man is, right? The very essence, as the Sheik said, you know, us going deep down into ourselves, and you know, deep down into our soul to be able to experience this meeting place. Islam, Sheik. Islam.
Since we on the heart, I got a question as far as like, what would it mean when it says circumcision of the heart?
Circumcision of the heart. And anybody got any response? I'm gonna keep putting this back on y'all. What does it mean when it talks about the circumcision of the heart, and that's mentioned in where? In the Bible, in the Holy Bible. Circumcision of the heart.
Cut out.
Cut out.
Circumcision means you remove something.
Yeah.
Okay. You said that? Islam. Islam. Praise Allah. All right. Islam.
I rise from our praise to Allah. Give my highest praise to his holy divine prophet of Ali. I thought this came in when he asked that question when he said circumcision of the heart. But then when you said physical heart, is that circumcision of the physical heart or the spiritual heart? Or is he actually saying circumcision of the heart or yourself? You know what I'm saying?
Islam. You heard Jay?
I know that the physical part can be circumcised, so you're speaking about it, so I was just trying to see how it corresponds.
Islam. Islam, Sheik.
So I have no idea. I think the answer to that would be in going to chapter 5,
Islam.
demonstration of compass.
The compass.
What is used for? Once you understand that, draw circles around our what? Passions and desires.
And desires.
So the heart, a circle, to draw a circle.
And that's the reason I bounced it back to the floor, because again, if we're reading our Quran, when we hear something regarding circumscribed or circle, right, we should automatically think compass. Islam, Moors? To circumscribe our passions and desires, to keep them within the bounds of what? Righteousness. Right? So if we draw a circle around our passions and desires, then we understand how to set boundaries for ourselves. Islam, Moors? We understand how to create a circle, because we know that when we step outside of that circle, chaos and confusion. Islam?
Islam. To count back off of everyone who just spoke, how it ties in with the spiritual and physical heart, blood flow. Just say, for instance, with a man how Viagra was created, right? You know what I mean? By the organ being connected to the male genitalia. That particularly, as we know, our lower self, which usually gets man in trouble. And so that's where, we have to draw circles around our passions and desires when Tying to that.
Islam. Islam. Being able to control those passions and things like that. Islam. I got you. Islam.
Good and faithful to practice. Right. So, Chairman, the brother asked a question about what heart. That we can go through our Quran and it refers to the heart. When Jesus in Pareto was reading the sacred book, something was said that disturbed Jesus. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it right on hand. But Jesus said, let's go in mind. Let's go back in ages. So when we talked about we can meet Allah in the heart, we talking about what's in the heart of our mind.
That's right.
Because we know that according to vitals, when people take your vitals, you know, you can be brain dead or you can be heart dead. So if you have no brain function, you are unable to think. You know, and then it's somewhere in our Quran it also says, he who hears is still. So we talking about our thinking process. Not no physical heart.
Islam.
Brother mentioned the circumcision of the heart. Yeah. Tools of the workshop of the mind. No, it's not a physical heart that is actually talking about. It's talking about getting rid of all those things that are not conducive to your growth and development as human beings here on this earth.
Islam.
Now, what does that have to do with more traumatic minds? Let's ask that question. Everything that we were taught from the institution of slavery all the way up to now is not good for us. The prophet said, get a good European education and I can use you. Well, a lot of us in here have a good European education, right?
Islam.
But now let me go back to what Detective King said yesterday. That Detective King said yesterday, he realized he was locking up his own people. So he sought to change that. So he started educating himself on how he can change the mindset of himself and the people that he comes in contact with.
That's right.
So now, what does a good European education have to do with this? When you get a good European education, you're going to find out this. It comes from us.
Islam. That's right.
You are responsible for that education. You are responsible for how the world is today. Don't stop at, well, a lot of people want to read the book, The Moors in Spain. Go beyond that book. Yeah, you will find a lot of things in there that we did for Spain, but go beyond that. You want to know how great you is? Research your history. Yeah, the Moor Scientific America gives you a curriculum that you can go in any book and find yourself and put yourself in that position. But know that we are, and you are, the creators of what's going on around you. That's why the prophet said, if I can get you to think, you can save yourself.
Islam. Islam. Praise Allah. Islam.
Praise Allah. So what does the prophet mean when he says keep your hearts and minds pure love? Expound on that, brother.
Well, I think you all have pretty much everything that was said pretty much answered that question. You know, keeping your heart and mind pure of love, and your body's clean with water. Because you go from spiritual to the physical, right? The spiritual, when we're able to cleanse or clean up the spiritual or the spirit man, then that has an influence on the physical, right? It has an influence on our actions. It has an influence on how we treat one another, how we engage with one another, right? To keep your heart and mind pure, because what does it mean to be pure? What is purity? Purity is being what?
It's uncut. It's
Uncut, unblemished, right? Unmixed, undistorted, right? And so if it's all of those things, then my behavior, my actions, the manifest of those of that pure heart and pure mind, right? What manifests is pure behavior, pure words, pure thoughts, pure deeds. Islam? So keep your hearts and minds pure of love, then what should manifest from that is love. Well, we know that purity paves the way for love, so we have to cleanse ourselves first, right? And then what will manifest is that love. Islam, Morris? Islam. You had your hand up, Sheik?
I did, bro, but I don't want to drag it out.
Islam. Islam. All right, let's move on. Key 15. For what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
For the uplifting of fallen humanity.
Key 16. How did the Prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans?
By teaching them to be themselves.
Key 17. What is our religion?
Islamism.
Key 18. Is that a new or is that the old time religion?
Old time religion.
Key 19. What kind of a flag is the Moorish?
It is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center.
Key 20. What do the 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
I want to take note at key 19. It says, what kind of a flag is the Moorish? You know, and it's referring to, you know, it's giving the flag itself a description in some ways, right?
Yeah.
As if the flag is a person, right? What kind of a flag is the Moorish? But then it goes on to say, what do the 5 points represent? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So then what is the flag? See, another word for flag, what's another word for flag? Kinda, not necessarily. So there's some other words for flag is standard, ensign, right? E-N-S-I-G-N. And these words standard, right? Well, what is the Moorish American standard? This is why oftentimes when I open my honors, well, all the time, when I open my honors, I say I give honors to the Moorish standard, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center, because it represents love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And that is the standard for the Moorish American. So then this physical thing is a representation of you. You are the flag. So what kind of flag is the Moorish? What kind of flag are you? What standard do you uphold, right? What principles are you upholding? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam? So it's just interesting that the question is structured that way, right? Rather than saying, you know, what kind of you know, this, I don't know how to restructure the question, but it's interesting that the question is structured that way. Islam, Morris? Islam.
First I rise, giving the highest praise to Allah, then the highest honors to our Prophet Noble Jawad.
Islam says, Islam, Sheik is. Islam.
One thing that I thought about when you said that, about the Moorish standard and about how we are the flag, just like how when the flag is like presented, like it represents something, people see it, but just like that, just like the flag, we also represent, you know, this movement.
Right.
When people see the movement, they see us.
Islam.
So just like that, we are that flag.
Islam. Islam. And you know, when we think about that, you know, this flag represents the, you know, the Moorish Americans or the, you know, the Moorish people, right? You determine how this flag is perceived. Your behavior, right? The things that you do in society determine how this thing is perceived. Islam? So when people see this flying, you know, whether it's on your houses or, you know, at a ceremony or any kind of function like this, right? When they come in here, they should automatically know that this belongs to a people who represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Not a people who are filing paperwork at county courthouses and driving without driver's license and running around talking about birth certificate, all this madness, right? It's supposed to represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It's supposed to represent obedience to Allah, modesty, temperance, prudence, justice. All of these things, it's supposed to represent those things, and you determine how it is perceived. Islam, Morris? So we have to strive to get back to that pure representation, so that our flag is perceived as a pure representation of us. Islam, Morris? Islam. Islam.
So is that's what how we would enable us to have our free national standards?
It's like, well, we have our free national standards, you know.
So does that come through the flag in itself, or, you know? But I see that you say like a flag represents the stand. I'm trying to see how that would just tied in. Like like you said, the flag represents the standard. And like you said, we have free national standards. So is it the principles in itself that's enabled us, or just by having a flag in itself, which has allowed us to have those free national standards? And can you explain what free national standards may be just for someone?
So, what are our free national standards? If flag and standard mean the same thing, then what are our free national standards? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Okay, so it is by way of us practicing love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice that we are able to, that enables us to be able to practice our religion unmolested, right? To be able to give us the power to be able to have self-determination, to give us the power to be able to self-define, to give us the power to be able to teach our children their historical legacy. They give us the power to be able to practice our religious customs. They give us the power to be able to celebrate our holy days. All of these things that we establish for ourselves and not something that was established by other people, right? So it gives us that autonomy within the confines of American society, right? To be able to do these things unmolested. Islam.
Kevin already written. In my studies, I have a question. Okay, we have 5 principles, right? And we say the 5-point ring star in the center. It made me think about the circle center. So why did the prophet use 5 principles and not 7 principles? If we have a circle center.
You have to ask the prophet that. I'm not going to pretend to be in the thoughts or in the mind of the prophet, right? All I can go with is what the prophet gave us. If anybody had, he's about to. Islam, praise Allah. Grant, she said he want to hold it for later. Islam, definitely an excellent question, but I don't want to, because if I say something, then I'm pretending to know what the prophet was thinking at that time when he gave it to us, right? Or I'll be making up something. If the prophet didn't specifically say it, then I ain't gonna say it. Right? What was that, y'all?
20.
Key 20, what do the 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Key 21, how old is our flag?
It is over 10,000 years old.
Key 22, which is our holy day?
Friday.
Key 23, why? Ooh, I heard a whole bunch of different answers in there. Key 23, why? Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in flesh, and it was on that Friday when he departed out of flesh. Islam, y'all sound great. Key 24, who was Jesus? Key 25, where was he born? Key 26, who were his father and mother?
Joseph and Mary.
Key 27, will you give in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came?
Some of the great fathers
Through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. Key 28, why did Allah send Jesus to this earth? Nations of Europe who are governing a portion of Palestine. Key 29, Islam.
I have a question about Jesus. So was Jesus an Israelite or was he a Moor?
Islam.
Wow.
Praise Allah. I think we were just having that discussion earlier, wasn't it? Well, let's go back. Key 27. Will you give in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came? Some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth. Stop.
Right there.
What was the nationality of Ruth? What was the nationality of Boaz? So then, what is the nationality of Jesus?
Jesus was of
If you go by genealogy, he was the same as his father.
Islam. Interesting. But what was his line and descent come from? Come from the Israelites and the Moabites, right?
He was of the true blood.
He was of the true blood of the ancient and the Canaanites and Moabite nations, right? And that's what our Holy Quran and the Moorish Science Temple of America say. But we see right here that he is a descendant of the ancient Moabites and Israelites. You know, Islam? Islam.
But the question is mistaken was he a Moor?
Well, then what was the ancient name for Moab? I mean,
Modern name?
what's the matter of fact? Let's just keep going. How about that? Why did key 28? Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth? Key 29. How long has that been?
About 2,000 years ago.
Key 30. What was the nationality of Ruth?
Ruth was a Moabite.
Ruth was a Moabitess. What is the modern name for Moabites?
Moroccan.
What is the last sentence of Act 6 states? The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. So then, is that saying that Moabite, Moroccan, and Moorish are all synonymous? Moabite, Moroccan, and Moorish. If the modern name for Moabite is Moroccan, and the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabit the northwest and southwestern shores of Africa, aren't those all synonymous? So then, well, was Jesus a Moor?
Yes.
Praise Allah. Can I move forward? Islam.
Praise Allah.
Key 32. Where is the Moroccan Empire?
Northwest of Mexico.
Key 33. What is the modern name for a Mexican?
Africa.
Key 34. What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco?
Sultan.
Key 35. Where do we get the name Jesus?
From the east.
Key 36. What does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
Key 37. Did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes, but they not be used by those who are slaves to sin.
Key 38. What is an angel?
The angel is the thought of Allah manifested in human flesh.
Key 39. What are angels used for?
To carry messages to the four corners of the world of all nations.
Oh wait, so angels aren't babies flying around, little European babies,
No, sir.
flying around with playing the harp.
No,
That's cute.
Ooh, so that's Cupid. Okay,
Islam.
that's European psychology too.
What's Cupid's nationality?
That's a good question. Islam. So key 40. What is our prophet to us?
He is the angel of Allah who sits between us and the everlasting gospel of Allah.
Y'all sure? Key 40. What is our prophet to us? He is an angel of Allah who is sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah. Key 41. What is the everlasting gospel? And just to go back to key 40, we identify our prophet as a prophet and as an angel. Islam. Because he did both. Islam, Sheik. Islam. Islam. I don't like it. I feel like I'm in trouble up here. I don't really scared. Key 42. What is the covenant of the great God Allah?
Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth, which the Lord thy God hath given thee.
Okay.
Islam.
Islam.
So is that talking about a physical father and mother? Is this talking about like?
Yes. Keep going. What's the other part of your question?
No, we asked my question. So that's,
No, I did. Ask the rest of your question. I'm sorry, y'all. I do this with her all the time, so praise God. It's all love. So I'm not being rude or anything.
So is that talking about a physical mother and father, or is that talking about a spiritual mother and father? Is it talking about honor thy father and mother? Is that birth mother and father? Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So what?
Yes.
I'm gonna say Islam.
Islam.
I got some stuff to say, but first and foremost, we rise. Give praise to Allah, give honor to the Prophet of the Ali, give honor to the forerunner, give honor to our charity.
Islam.
Who were Adam and Eve? They are the mothers and fathers
of the human family.
Right? So, you start from your family, and then you extend. So we go back in class. We just went back to one of our mothers, Ruth.
Islam.
Right. So then the question then is, how do we honor our mother?
Islam.
This is not just like I just did to those are words, right? How do we honor them once we identify who they are? Now, like someone said, matter of fact, you were saying during the Holy Day week that the man that you are today is because of your mother. What she taught you. Honor her by living according to what she taught you.
That's right.
She got that from somebody.
That's right.
So let's carry it back. It's a continuation.
That's right.
So it's just not limited to, it goes back, because every woman is a Eve.
That's right.
And every man is an Adam.
That's right. Islam. Praise Allah. Praise Allah. And that's why I just simply said yes. Because you're honoring the forefather, you're honoring the creed and principles of your forefathers, right? By way of your genealogy. Your mother, the reason I said that my mother was there present. So, she's the reason I am who I am today, because she was the first one that taught me love, true peace, freedom, and justice. And she didn't know nothing about the prophet. But somehow she knew that those principles belong in her style of teaching me, right? So even without her even knowing the prophet or knowing anything about Moorish or Moorish Americans, some kind of way those principles kept going and being passed down from generation to generation. And she decided to stick to them. Those who didn't were cast out of the Garden of Eden, right? But she kept those principles and continued to pass those down to me, and without any knowledge of what Moorish is, until I found out, and now I'm able to teach her, right? In a way that was handed down to me by the prophet, right? And what I'm sharing with her is, I'm basically repeating all the stuff that she's been saying to me all my life. Islam. So for me, it was, it's an honor. I think about that cycle of life. Her teaching me all these years, to get me to a particular point to where I'm able to move off on my own, and learn things on my own. And now I can turn around and teach her some things as well, right? Not saying that I know more than her or anything like that, but I just think about that cycle of life, being able to give back what was given to me. Islam.
Coming back and up what the grandchildren said. You honor the principles. Whether it's your biological mother or not.
That's right.
Any sister that you see in the street or elder person, you're always respectful.
That's right.
You always hold the door. But if you're using profanity, you stop using profanity and so forth.
Right. Absolutely.
And you're not disrespectful.
That's right.
To your mother.
That's right.
Biological or otherwise.
Right. Islam. And even still to this day, I'm scared to disrespect my mother. Praise Allah. Gratitude, Sheik. Key 43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
At the age of 12.
Key 44. Where did he teach?
In India, Africa, and Europe.
Key 45. How long did he teach?
18 years.
Key 46. What did Jesus say that will make you free?
Truth.
Key 47. What is truth?
Truth is ought.
Key 48. What is ought?
Ought is ought.
Key 49. Can truth change?
Truth cannot change or pass away.
Key 50, what other name do we give to truth?
Holy breath.
Key 51, what have you to say about the holy breath?
All we can say it is great, it is good, it was, it is, and will to be. Amen.
Key 52, at what place on earth was the physical part of man formed?
In the Garden of Eden.
Key 53, where is the Garden of Eden?
In the land of Canaan, the city of Mecca.
Key 54, what is the modern name for the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
Key 55, what is the name of the first physical man?
His name cannot be used only by executive rules of the AC of the MSTFA.
You had that members in here? I see, yeah. Islam. Key 56, what are the words of AC of the MST of A? Key 57, who were Adam and Eve?
They are among the fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims.
Key 58, where did they go? Key 59, what is the modern name given to their children?
Asiatics.
Key 60, who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep the unbelievers away?
Angels.
Key 61, what is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
Key 62, what is the shade of their skin?
Olive.
Key 63, are the Moorish Americans in relation to those angels?
Yes, we all have the same father and mother.
Key 64, give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast.
Key 65, what is the devil sometimes called?
The lower self.
Key 66, how many selves are there?
2.
Key 67, name them.
Higher self and lower self.
Key 68, what people represent the higher self?
The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca.
Key 69, what people represent the lower self?
Those who cast out the holy city, those who accept their teachings.
Key 70, what is the higher self?
The higher self, the mother of virtues and harmony of life, free, justice, mercy, love, and right.
Key 71, can the higher self pass away?
No.
Key 72, why?
Because they are man.
Key 73, what does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms.
Key 74, what did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him?
What are we going, Satan?
Key 75, what was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour.
Key 76, has he finished his task of devouring?
Yes.
Key 77, when was his time declared out?
When he nailed Jesus on the cross.
Key 78, what are the last words Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
Key 79, what did he have reference to?
He had reference to the end of Satan.
Key 80, did Jesus say that he would return to conquer him?
Yes.
Key 81, what is the name of the person into whom Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror.
Key 82, was Satan to be bound then?
Satan was bound in part.
Key 83, when was the head of Satan taken off?
1453 Valentine's Day.
I heard you. Key 84, by whom?
By Muhammad.
Key 85, name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774.
Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian.
Key 86, we'll read together. Negro, a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contains black water. Key 87, what is meant by the word black?
Black border signs means death.
Key 88, what does the word colored mean?
Color means anything that has contained stain, varnished, or dyed.
Key 89, what does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopia means something divided.
Key 90, can a man be a Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No.
Key 91, why?
Because man is made in the image and the likeness of God.
Key 92, what title does Satan give himself?
God.
Key 93, will you define the word white?
White means purity, purity means God, God means ruler of the land.
Key 94, to whom do we refer to at times as being the great God?
Allah.
Key 95, is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah?
No, he is the shadow of our lower selves and will pass away.
Key 95, is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah?
No, he is our shadow of our lower self and will pass away.
We'll do that one more time. Key 95, is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah?
No, he is shadow of our lower selves and will pass away.
Thank you. Key 96, who made the devil?
Elohim.
Key 97, who is Elohim?
Elohim is the seven created spirits that created everything that it was, is, and evermore to be.
Key 98, what is Elohim sometimes called?
The 7 eyes of Allah.
Key 99. How many days are in the circle?
7 days.
Key 100. How many days are in a creation?
7 days.
Key 101. According to science, how many days are in a year?
7 days.
Islam.
Islam.
Are there any questions? I went ahead and read through them because I know I wanted to make sure I allotted time for our National Grand Sheik to speak. So I just went on ahead and got through those. But are there any questions at this time regarding any of the questions and answers that are located in our Quran questions? Islam system.
81 what is the first name of the person to whom Jesus was first reincarnated? Prophet Muhammad. So I got a question.
Islam.
Is the soul plane basically somebody getting reincarnated? Because I know y'all talk about that a lot, about like after somebody passes away something, they go to the soul plane. But it says Jesus was reincarnated, so. And then there's also spirits that still roam the earth and stuff, so that's why I'm confused about it.
So the question is, what's the question?
The question is the soul plane basically somebody getting reincarnated?
So is the soul plane basically somebody being reincarnated? The soul plane is a plane of existence. It's not defined as reincarnation itself. Soul plane is a plane of existence. So we have 3 planes of existence according to our Quran, right? What are those?
Spirit plane, soul plane, and manifest state.
Islam. So we have the spirit plane, the soul plane, and the plane of manifest. The soul plane, as you stated, when the physical form pass away, the spirit of man moves back onto the soul plane, or the soul plane. Man goes back to the soul plane. Our Quran talks about how on the soul plane we're still solving problems there as well. So I think that's chapter 4, right? Chapter 4 talks about how even there we have problems to, we're still learning lessons and solving problems on the soul plane as well. Now, as far as reincarnation, it says that what is the name of the person into whom Jesus was first reincarnated? It says Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror. So what was it that reincarnated back into Prophet Muhammad, or reincarnated? What was it that reincarnated into Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror? I'll ask that question to the floor. What was it that reincarnated into Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror?
And then you said something after that.
I was saying I'll pose the question to the floor. Islam. Islam. Islam.
The spirit.
Spirit of what?
We're talking the spirit of truth.
Islam.
We're talking the spirit.
Mm-hmm. So that spirit of Jesus, but we know that Jesus means
Justice.
So it says that Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror. So if it says the Conqueror, then that means that there was a spirit of justice coming back onto the scene.
Wow.
Right? So Jesus being reincarnated into Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror wasn't talking about the physical man that walked, right? It wasn't the physical man that reincarnated into Prophet Muhammad. But I'm just explaining. It was the spirit of that man that returned, right? That same spirit returned in what date? Islam, January 8th, right? 1886. So it's that spirit that came back onto the scene at a time appointed by Allah, right? So this same spirit reincarnates itself, especially when there are times where those particular people stray away from the path, start following other people's traditions and customs and practicing other people's religions and things like that. And so that spirit has to come back to get us back on the path so that we can, be back in accord with the creed and principles of our forefathers. As we were talking about earlier, practicing those principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we had strayed away from that. So we had to have a divine manifestation to come back to get us on that path. Did that make sense? You sure?
Yeah.
Islam. Reason I ask that because we often talk about here at Grand Temple 19, if we can explain these lessons in a simplest form to where a child can understand them, then we ourselves don't know them. Islam. So we try to make sure that we word our explanations in a way that even the children that are in the room can grasp that understanding. Islam says.
So having already risen, and I'm trying to find a way to word this question so it doesn't sound as complex as it feels in my head.
Islam.
So I guess on reading that, that Jesus would return to conquer him, and he returned as the Prophet Muhammad. We know he returned again as our prophet. And for each of the prophets that we had, there was a battle with Satan. And in this questionnaire, they said on 82, it says for Satan to be bound, and he was to be bound in heart. So who was, what, I guess more specifically, what was the Satan that our prophet had to battle against? To bind him. Sorry.
Go ahead, Sheik.
Islam.
Apologies.
Ooh, goodness.
That was excellent.
Anybody want to help? Islam. Praise Allah.
Give praise to Allah and to Prophet.
Islam.
See, sometimes we want to skate around too. The fact of the matter is that even when you say the 1453 Byzantine with the head of state taken off, we're talking about that political part of the Roman Empire of Constantinople and the Nicene Council. You can find that in any encyclopedia what we're dealing with. The Roman Empire. You want to bring it up to the day we're talking about the government. It's just that simple. They were oppressing us. What the prophet is teaching us is that when we get back on top, don't treat them the same way they treated us. So we deal with the religious aspect, and we talk about that Roman government.
Islam, Sheik.
I just want to make sure that we're clear, because a lot of times, we'll use terms like the government. And government is like it's an entity in and of itself. It's operated by people.
That's right.
Right. The Prophet talked about the U.S. Constitution and all that. How it's structured is great.
Right.
That's you understand? It's operated by people. When the sister, is an excellent question. We're dealing with an ideology.
That's right.
We talk about Satan, and we have a people that represent the lower self.
That's right.
We know what the lower self entails. The Prophet taught us what it entails. Consistently over the angles of time, a certain group of people have been at the head of this representation everywhere they went.
Right. That's right.
Even up to present day time. So that's the people that he's talking about, and anyone who follows those teachings.
Islam.
Because sometimes they can look like us following those
That's right.
teachings. So
That's right.
So caught up on, it ain't the government, it ain't necessarily the Pale Skin Nation of New York who are the founders of those teachings. But it's also those who have been convinced that those teachings are the right way.
That's right.
And it entails a lot, but you asked a question, you're ready for the answer.
Islam. Praise Allah.
We got babies in here, I don't want to confuse them.
Right.
Because it goes, as we heard before, there's levels to this. But at the end of the day, it still comes back to you and I. That's right. It still comes back to us.
There you go.
Because this battle is twofold. Because the first battle is with that Satan within.
That's right.
That's the first battle. Because if I don't win the battle with the Satan within, I am susceptible to the one without the side.
That's right.
So now I'll be following that.
Yes, sir.
Get the bag at any cost. right? Get the bag at any cost for me, I'm gonna snap the feds off, all this stuff, I'm gonna do what I gotta do, get in the mud and get it.
That's right.
That's a concept, that's an ideology that came from somewhere, right? So I'm following that. And I'm teaching it as I move along to other people, perpetually. You know what I'm saying?
Islam. You know, camel back on that point, excellent explanation. Because again, the prophet is removing, as I said before, the last 2 days I said, the prophet is removing the victim mentality from us. And he's teaching us to look within ourselves. So the reason it took me a second to respond to that question, because the question was, what Satan was the prophet battling with? The prophet himself teaches us that the only devil that man should be redeemed from is self, right? What's one of the names of what is the devil sometimes called? Well, it's also sometimes called Satan too, right? So the Satan we should be redeemed from as well is self, right? So guess what? The prophet had 2 selves. He had 2 selves. But he didn't allow his lower self to rule him. He operated in his higher self at all times. That's why he was a prophet, right? So this lower self, he was struggling with that too. All the stuff that was going on during his time, even those closest to him seeking to overthrow him and cause confusion and things like that. It takes strength and courage to overcome those things and not yourself descend down into your lower self and respond from that perspective, right? So from the perspective of the teachings of the prophet, then the Satan that he was dealing with at that time was his lower self, right? And because he understood his lower self, he was able to understand the lower self in other people. We can't understand. One of the reasons that the first instruction is to know thyself and not Father God Allah is so that you can understand, before you can engage with other people effectively, you have to know your own weaknesses. You have to be self-aware of your own biases and all of these things, right? Because if you aren't, then you are susceptible to being triggered to respond in a way that is not conducive to the growth of that relationship. Islam? So we have to know these things within ourselves before we can effectively create change outside of us, right? We have to change within ourselves before we can change anything outside in our own, in our environment, right? And thus the prophet gave us the article on Islam, meaning peace, right? Peace with self and peace with the environment, peace with Allah, etc., etc. But you have to go within self first. He says, know thyself first, then know thy Father God Allah. Islam? Islam. The brother had his hand up first. Okay, Islam.
So I guess, would it be correct to say that the binding that we have against Satan is the divine principles, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice? Is that partial binding that it speaks about in the questionnaire?
I think I misunderstood.
So I guess what I'm saying is, before in the questionnaire it says that Satan was to be bound in part. Is that binding in part that we have as our way of binding him, our divine principles, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice?
Islam. Absolutely. Yep. By binding ourselves to those divine principles, then we can bind that lower self. We can bind that Satan and keep him under control, keep him circumscribed, right? Using our compass. Islam? Islam.